Hello children, this is Grandma Carla, and I would like to read you another Mr. Putter and Tabby book. And this one is Mr. Putter and Tabby, Toot the Horn. And this book is by Cynthia, Rylant. And I love Mr. Putter and Tabby books. So let's read this new one. Mr. Putter and Tabby, Toot the Horn. Chapter 1, Loud Music. Mr. Putter and his fine cat Tabby were neighbors to Mrs. Teaberry and her good dog Zeke. Mrs. Teaberry and Mr. Putter had a lot in common. There's Mrs. Teaberry and there's Mr. Putter. They both have a pet that they love very much. They're good friends. They both liked bingo. They both liked free samples. And they both liked rain. They both liked music. Mrs. Teaberry liked country music the best. She liked the broken hearts. She liked the big silver boots and the tall hair. Mr. Putter liked opera. He also liked broken hearts, and he liked the big round heroes and the violins. They both like different kinds of music. Some days, Mrs. Teaberry would play her country music very loud for Mr. Putter to hear. Some days, Mr. Putter would play his opera very loud for Mrs. Teaberry to hear. They liked sharing. One day, Mrs. Teaberry had an idea. "We should join a band," she told Mr. Putter. "But I can't join a band," said Mr. Putter. "I can't play an instrument." "Of course you can," said Mrs. Teaberry. "Old people can do anything they want." "Can't they say they can't play an instrument?" asked Mr. Putter. "No," said Mrs. Teaberry. So she and Mr. Putter went to look for a band. They like to talk through their windows at each other. Chapter 2, Tough Teeth. Mr. Putter and Tabby and Mrs. Teaberry and Zeke went to hear many bands play. They went to hear an Irish band play jigs, but the jigging made Tabby nervous and Zeke itch, so they could not play in an Irish band. Poor Zeke and Tabby. Next, they went to hear a brass band, but the brassy sound made Mrs. Teaberry's teeth hurt, so they could not play in a brass band. Poor Mrs. Teaberry. Then they went to hear a jazz band. The band played very late in a club after midnight. Mr. Putter fell asleep, so they could not play in a jazz band. Poor Mr. Putter and Mrs. Teaberry. It seemed that bands were only for people who had tough teeth and didn't need much sleep. They sat with Tabby and Zeke and wondered what to do. Chapter 3, Mr. Putter Can't. "I have it," said Mrs. Teaberry a few days later. She had brought Mr. Putter and Tabby some peach tea and carrot pie. "We will be a band." "But I still can't play an instrument," said Mr. Putter. "Of course you can," said Mrs. Teaberry. "I can't," said Mr. Putter. "You can if you want to," said Mrs. Teaberry. Mr. Putter thought about Tabby's nerves and Zeke's itch and Mrs. Teaberry's teeth. He thought about a nap. "I'm not sure that if I want to," said Mr. Putter. "If you try, I will bake you something sweet," said Mrs. Tea-Berry. "Sweet?" said Mr. Petter. "Something really nutty," said Mrs. Tea-Berry. "Nutty?" said Mr. Petter. "With lots of vanilla," said Mrs. Tea-Berry. "I'm ready to play," said Mr. Petter. He does like Mrs. Tea-Berry's baking. Chapter 4. Mr. Petter Tries. The next day, Mr. Petter bought a little horn, and he bought it because it was on sale. When he got home, Mr. Petter tooted the horn for 4 hours. He was a very bad tooter, the worst. Tabby went outside to sleep in the ferns. She did not want to hear any more of that noise. Mrs. Tea-Berry did not buy a horn to toot. She bought a mandolin. When she got home, she started plucking. She was a good plucker. She plucked all night long, and Zeke did not itch. There she is, plucking her mandolin. By the next morning, Mrs. Tea-Berry could pluck her favorite country songs, but Mr. Petter could not toot his favorite songs. His tutor was holding up a tomato plant. He buried his horn right there to hold up a tomato plant. I guess he's just not much for instruments. Chapter 5. The Band. Mrs. Tea-Berry forgave Mr. Petter for being a bad tutor. She said he could listen to her pluck instead, and so he did. They're good friends, aren't they? He listened to her pluck all of the broken-hearted songs she could think of. He liked it very much. Tabby purred. Zeke did not itch. After the concert, they all had a sweet, nutty vanilla surprise. Mrs. Tea-Berry said Mr. Petter deserved it because he had tried. There she is serving him and the pets something sweet and nutty with vanilla. She said she did not mind being the only person in the band. She said the name of her band would be Plucking Without Petter, and they laughed and laughed and laughed. And that is the end of the story. Isn't it great? They all had such fun not being in a band together. This is Grandma Carla, and I love you.